Well, welcome everyone to Sheltered Sages, the show where two formerly sheltered homeschoolers, now adults, talk about the complexities of life one Reddit story at a time. I'm Andrew.
I am Philip.
And I
you
got it so
perfected
good.
that.
Yes, awesome.
That was so smooth too.
That's great. After the week I've had, woo, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Oh man. Well, I am glad to be back. Are you happy to be here?
I am happy to be here.
Awesome.
It's always exciting to be able to have like a day when we're recording the podcast because it's like I get to hang out with you.
Yep.
We get to talk about things. We generally talk before the episode starts and then after the episode starts. So it's like a reason why I can come over and hang out and like have fun. But also it's fun to talk about these stories and like hang out with the audience and see what they're thinking about things. It's always sad because we record it before it comes out, obviously.
Yes.
So then it's like I have in my head what I want the audience to hear, and then they're going to hear it for like a week.
Yeah. But like that's with my wife is like she'll listen to it and I'm like, oh, I've got these stories.
Yeah.
And sometimes like the episode doesn't come out for like a week or two after we record. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just sitting on these stories, or like I'll forget about what I wanted to talk about and then she'll hear the episode. Yeah. And then she'll be like, oh my goodness, this crazy thing. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I meant to talk to you about that. That's wild.
It's always fun. It's always great.
It's a good time. Well, we have some good news, but we also have some sad news because today is going to actually be the last episode for the first semester of Sheltered Sages. Yeah. Because we're predominantly homeschool focused, I felt like it would be appropriate, instead of it being like a season or, a session or anything like that, having it be a semester could be a lot of fun.
That's great.
One of the reasons that we're doing this, and something that I'm excited about, is I actually started going back to school. I started classes this week, actually. I'm going back and pursuing my bachelor's in English with a focus in secondary education. Mm-hmm. So storytelling and literature and language arts and those kind of things, I'll be able to help going into schools and teaching middle schoolers and high schoolers and kind of getting to share my passion for all of those cool things. So with that in mind, I wanted to make sure that I got to take some time to breathe for a little bit, to focus on school. We also finished the school year at the after-school program I'm at, which is a whole...
Yeah, you were telling me kids towards the end of the school year, of course, since homeschooled, remember that I did not have to experience firsthand, but you got to experience how it feels to be in the last week before summer vacation.
I've seen the memes, right? You see all the teacher memes that it's like teachers during the month of May as school comes to an end, and it's just like them dying. And like, let me tell you, yes, and I only had to deal with the children for 2 to 3 hours after school. I couldn't imagine a full 8 hours a day with children who are just like chomping at the bit to go home and be on summer break and to not have to worry about homework or school or anything like that.
That's fair.
So it's an experience, to say the least.
Friend. Godspeed.
Yes. So I am taking a break from the after school side of things. I'm still teaching Taekwondo and things like that, but that's only about 2 hours a day that I'll be doing that, to focus on school, to focus on, just kind of re-energizing myself. And then starting next school year, I'm actually going to start as a substitute teacher.
Ooh,
so I'm going to
exciting.
start slipping into the schools and trying different grades and different age groups and things like that, to figure out exactly where I want to teach once I get done, depending on what's available to me.
That's fair. That's awesome.
So,
congratulations. It's always exciting to see things change and move. And thank you guys for going along with us through this journey of everything. I mean, as you've been listening, we've been doing various things. Andrew is going to school now. It's an exciting thing. So it's like it's awesome. Thank you for going along with us towards this. The other news, it's like, again, a little bit sad because the semester for us on this podcast is ending, but we are coming back.
Absolutely.
Afterwards with more stories. We have so many plans for the second semester of this show.
Yeah, it's not just going to be Reddit stories. I think we're going to start moving into doing some like not just like might be Reddit stories still, but like different areas of Reddit, doing more possible like interview style things. I know my wife has talked about like games or things that we could do on the podcast that I think would be a lot of fun, like we did for our timed competition game. We'll have to talk about that a little bit more afterwards, but we definitely have some really cool plans for the next. We just needed to take a little bit off. We're talking probably a month, right? We're coming back in July.
Potentially, we'll see.
Yeah, either July, mid or early to mid-July is I think when we're coming back.
But like, follow us on our socials. We'll say this towards the end as well. Follow us on our socials. We'll give you more information about when we're coming back, what's going on, and once again, if you want to be a part of this show in a more important stage, you can send in your stories to be some of the first individuals to have your stories on this show.
Absolutely.
So please do that.
So you can reach out to us at shelteredsages@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the places. YouTube, obviously, that's one of the big ones.
Any one of those places, either Andrea or I will find it and we will try to respond, which we've been trying to respond to all the comments and things like that on there. So please let us know what you want.
Absolutely.
But Andrew, for this episode, for this finale episode of the first semester, what is our topic?
Well, we have been touting that we are homeschooled, formerly homeschooled students. So we thought it was only fair for the last episode of the semester that we hit on homeschooling, actually. Ooh. So this is going to be a collection of Reddit stories all about homeschoolers.
Wow.
So
we finally made it
back around.
It's kind of like a meta type thing. Yes, collecting these stories took me in a deep dive of my past.
Yes. I was thinking about a lot of stuff, actually.
Yeah, I was like, wow. Some of things were like connected. Other things were like, okay, I knew homeschoolers that experienced this stuff, but like there is, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but it's hard to find positive stories about homeschooling.
Yeah, we'll talk about that once we start getting into the stories, I think, because people have opinions.
They have,
and I understand that everyone has opinions. There's a saying that isn't clean, but like pickle feet, everyone has opinions.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So with that being said, speaking of pickle feet, as you know, we don't utilize that certain word in this one. So if you're the antagonist or the aggressor, we contact you as we label you as the picklefoot. We've also got some other ones. We've had some jar of pickles. We've had some deviled eggs,
which is worse than pickle feet.
Which is the worst of the worst, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But just a lot of different stories from that. So without further ado, I think we should start the final episode of the first semester now. But so I believe I'm starting with the first story.
Absolutely.
If you're ready for it.
I am ready for the story. Let's go.
Well, am I the picklefoot for telling my sister she should not homeschool her kids? Yep.
We'll
start with a strong one.
Yeah.
I am a 27 female. My sister is 30 female. She has 4 kids, a 10-year-old female, an 8 male and female, so twins, and a 6-year-old female. For additional background, my sister is a stay-at-home mom, and her husband works a 9-to-5 throughout the week. I have a fairly good relationship with my sister and her children, and I've provided regular childcare for her since her oldest daughter was a newborn. My sister has recently decided she doesn't like the local public school. She discussed alternatives with me before, and I've recommended her the private school that my friend's children attend. It's highly ranked, and everyone I know likes it. For the most part, she hasn't been too enthusiastic about the idea. She kept bringing up homeschooling, and I just try and redirect her, never being too firm against it. The other day, she came to me and told me that she had made up her mind. She decided that she would not send her children back to school at the end of the year and would instead be homeschooling. I told her, truthfully, that I didn't think that would be successful. She laid out her plan to me, which was not really a plan, just her saying she would teach the children from 8 to 3, and then they would be able to be together as a family for the rest of the day. I reminded her that she barely got through high school. She has no college degree. Her husband does, but he works all day and wouldn't be the main person teaching them. My oldest niece is incredibly social and loves the structure of her school. She wants to be a teacher when she grows up. I told her that her family can afford the private school and that she needs to make a decision that is best for her children. She told me I don't have a right to criticize her because I don't have children and I'm not a professional. I agreed with her, but I told her that I know her kids and I think this is going to be a misstep. She was really upset by this and told me she felt hurt and I didn't trust her to educate her children. I told her I trust her as a mother, not as a teacher, and that made her cry. Admittedly, I was getting a little frustrated and I was definitely snappish at her. I told her that she should probably go so we could calm down. She said that she wasn't changing her mind, and I said, okay, but I was not going to endorse it. That made her more upset. She has always been the family baby, and our parents are on me about being so mean to her. They're upset that I was judgmental. I want to see if this is something I really should concede on and just accept, or if it's right for me to hold firm. Am I the picklefoot for telling my sister not to homeschool?
This is, once again, a little more complicated, a little more nuanced.
Yeah, we're starting out with something a little bit heavier.
A little bit heavier. I'm going to start out by saying, and I'll explain, yes, OP is the picklefoot. Now, I want to say I understand her. I get where she's coming from. I get what's going on. So to kind of go back from there, homeschooling is not easy.
Mm-mm.
Because if you've been a teacher in any way, you understand that it is difficult enough to make sure that kids are following instructions and doing what they need to do. It's difficult enough taking care of kids. Yeah. Educating them is a whole other thing on top of that. So it's not an easy thing. You shouldn't just jump into homeschooling just because you want your kids to stay home or because you feel like, oh, it might be a little bit easier to not have to worry about driving something
fun to do or something like that.
It's difficult. Mm-hmm. It's not the easiest thing. Basically, you're being a teacher for every single subject for your children up until a certain point. So math, science, history, social studies, all of these things, you're going to have to be able to teach them. It's difficult, and I think it is super, super helpful to have a basis of understanding of like all of these subjects by itself. I was very, very blessed to have both of my parents. They have English degrees. They went to college. They're very, very educated. Some of the smartest people in the entire world, I believe. I appreciate them a lot because of that. And they were able to teach us a lot of things just based off of their own knowledge of how the world works and how things are going. But that said, even their knowledge, they had to go over to certain products and books and things like that to help them educate further. And this is why I say OP is kind of the picklefoot, because while it does help so much for the person who's educating the kids to have just like that understanding and knowledge of it, my parents used a lot of information, like products that would be able to help you math and help you learn all those things.
And curriculum, right?
Yes, curriculum to be able to do that. Even teachers use curriculum to do it because they don't know everything. Yes, it is better if they did know just a little bit about that kind of stuff and they did understand it. So I think, this mom who is thinking about homeschooling her kids should have a better plan than just, well, maybe I'll just do it. But instead of going, you're not going to be good at this and I don't agree with you, I think they should be like, let's look into what it's going to take for them to be successful.
Yeah. And I will say, especially for the age groups that they're at, this is a better time to be homeschooling because when you're 10 years old is around 5th grade, I believe, 4th or 5th grade. You're still in general information at this point in time. So usually in elementary school, at least in the state of Florida, elementary school 1st through 5th grade, you pretty much stay with the same teacher and teach a generalized curriculum of everything. You teach, like you said, English, math, history, social studies, science, all of the things. It does start once you get into the high school era. Once you get in high school, it starts spreading into more specific structural things where you might need more assistance. But also, even if you're teaching 99 times out of 100, you're utilizing some curriculum.
There you go.
You're not just teaching off of your own knowledge. You're not just sitting down and like, all right, kids, today I've decided we're going to work on math. And so here's math, and then you sit there like, no, there's usually some there's a lot of resources
Yeah.
that are available to people. But I kind of like wanted to talk about that a little bit. But even with like teachers, yes, they have to show competency in the curriculum that they're teaching, but it's still one of those things where, like you said, not everyone is proficient in every subject. I know some people who love math, and that's what their passion is. Even if they teach other things, that's still not. Just because you're not passionate about something doesn't mean you can't teach it.
Yeah. And that's a big part, I think, with homeschooling. Some people assume that if you're going to homeschool your kids, you already have to be a very competent teacher. Once again, that does help a ton. My mom and father were teachers before they started homeschooling me and my siblings. So they already knew how to deal with that. They already knew how to work through a curriculum. They already knew how to do testing and stuff like that. It was very, very helpful. That said, they learned it somewhere. And so if this mom is really passionate about doing homeschool, I think there are enough resources out there. Even if she's not the smartest person in the entire world, she should be able to do it successfully. And maybe it doesn't work out very well. Maybe it's not a good thing, and maybe it kind of falls to the wayside. It's worth letting her try, encourage her, support her through that to see it. It seems like in this story, though, OP has a problem. She said towards the end, this woman was always the baby of the family, kind of like got what she wanted and got her way. So like, I get if it's more like she's like, oh, I just want to do this. I've met people like that where you're like, you're not really thinking through these ideas. You think everything in life is easier than it's probably going to be just because you've probably had it easier than most people are. That said, I think that's a separate topic. Yeah. Like, homeschooling is one thing. Being competent as a human being is a completely other thing.
Yeah. The thing that I think I struggle with a lot on this is that, yes, the opinion of your family and things like that does matter. But at the end of the day, and this is something I've talked about too, this is a decision with you and your husband for your family.
Yeah.
Right? And you have every right to hold your opinion about what someone else does. You have every right to do that. However, being dogmatic and being like, you can't do that or you shouldn't do this, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's not the approach to do it.
Yeah.
Ask her questions. Try and understand. I'm like, okay, well, you say it's going to be from 8 to 3. What are you planning on doing during that time? Are you creating lesson plans? Are you utilizing curriculum? What are you planning on? Like, seek to understand.
Yes.
Try and understand what it is that they're thinking about doing and what thought process there. If they have put no thought process into it other than, well, we'll just do school from 8 to 3 and then we'll spend the rest of the time together as a family. It's like, okay, maybe you need to think about this a little bit more to understand it, but also recognize that you don't get the right to be disrespectful and be a jerk just because you disagree with someone's opinions.
Yeah. And it's also like, how much is she, OP, looking to be involved in this situation? Like, is she just more a sounding board for her sister and just like, hey, I'm going to be homeschooling? She's like, I don't really think it's a good idea. That's a short conversation. Yeah, you can say that. And I still think they're the pickle foot for how they said it and what they did in that situation, but still. But like, if it's more, you're really involved in the kids' upbringing, which it sounds like she was. Like, she helped kind of babysitting them and around the kids often, then maybe it's time to have a longer conversation. Now, to OP's credit, it is not their job to go over and find curriculum and look into plans and help them figure out this entire thing.
Absolutely.
If OP doesn't want to do that, there is no obligation for them to.
Yeah. And honestly, respectfully, it should not be her responsibility to do so.
No.
It should be the mom's who is wanting to do the homeschooling. You talked about your parents a lot. My mom was also got a degree in teaching. She actually taught in classrooms and things like that prior to teaching us. So she had a lot of specialization in elementary education. So that's where her strengths were. But that being said, still curriculum was utilized and all these other things. So one thing I want to focus on, and this is the thing where I think the sister, not the sister, not OP, but her sister might need to contemplate, and it's the thought of taking all 4 kids out of school at the same time to start homeschooling. That's a lot. What I would encourage specifically is, depending on where she was at, this elementary, the 10-year-old, right? 10-year-old is probably about to go into middle school. And that would mean her entire social circle in and of itself is going to be changed, unless she's at a school where they keep the elementary, middle school, and high schoolers all together throughout, like, all of it. That would be already a time of social change anyways.
Yeah.
She's going to get new social situations and new circle things. I actually have a friend who's a mom, and she actually did this with her son who was going into middle school, and just recognizing that he worked better in a more isolated environment, didn't work as well in the large social settings like that. So she, before he went into middle school, actually transitioned him into homeschooling. And that works. If you do it, you can take 2 of your students out of school or 2 of your children out of school, leaving the other 2 in. And then as you get comfortable, bringing in the other 2 as well. So, like, personally, that's what I would personally recommend is, like, don't start with all 4 of them doing school, because that's going to be a lot for you to juggle and handle and things like that. If you're able and in a position where you can, you know, have 2 of the children go to school while the other 2 are homeschooled, or vice versa, or something like that. I mean, like, you've got 2 6-year-olds, so those are probably in kindergarten right now. Leave them in kindergarten. Like, let the people who are comfortable teaching them how to read and write and all those kind of things, let them stay there in kindergarten while you take the other 2 students out and can start working with them, seeing what you're capable. Oh, wait, no. There were 2 8-year-olds. It was the twins.
Okay.
Take the twins out. Just kidding. No, but it's like, you know, that could be an option. Take the 10-year-old, take the youngest out, leave the twins in school, and, you know, let them, things like that.
Yeah. You don't have to go full in with all the kids at the same time. It's probably easier to kind of pull 1 or 2 out at the same time, see how it feels with them, and then continue on in that way.
There's another thing, too, that, like, this story did that I don't like that this issue did. And I see this in a lot of stories, actually. It's this idea of, well, if you don't like public school, just put your kids in private school.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, yes, private school exists. And I'll acknowledge, like, I went to a charter school, like we talked about, for when I was in, like, half of 4th grade, and then all of 5th grade, I was at a charter school. And then in 2nd grade, I was in a private school for 2 years, so a private Christian school. So I acknowledge that, like, I have been in those environments. However, we also have to recognize that everyone does not have the opportunity to be in a private school, and some people don't agree with private school.
Yeah.
Like, I recognize that if you're wanting to put, like, specifically if it's like you're religious and you want to put your kids in, like, a school that practices that religion and teaches those principles and things like that, all power to you. I think that's something that you should be able to do. But I recognize that, like, the privatization of education, there's a lot of things that go into it. And it's like, it creates barriers for entry, and it creates, like, a lot of problems. I'm not going to go too much into it.
Okay.
But there's a lot of things that can go into, like, you know, private education versus public education.
Yes.
And I don't appreciate that a lot of people's response to, instead of homeschooling, just send them to private school, when people are like, oh, I'm uncomfortable with the public school system.
I'll go there. I will go there in that way.
Absolutely.
I kind of hear what you're saying, and I think I understand it, but I'm going to go fully there. I think it is a sort of toxic ideal, and that we need to resolve it in many ways, because it's like, you understand whenever someone says, I don't like public school, no one's really like, oh, well, yeah, public school is great. What are you talking about? Usually it's more, oh, yeah, I agree. Public school's not great. Go to private school instead. And so, like, the idea is, if you don't like the free option of schooling your kids, go to one that costs money. Go to one that is separate from those things. Go to one that's outside of that. Which, why I say it's toxic is because everyone deserves to be able to be educated in the way that they need. Everyone deserves the correct resources to learn and to grow and to be better.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it's fair to go over and say, okay, well, if you need extra resources, if this isn't working for you, you need to pay for an alternative.
Yeah.
It's like, do we want people that are competent in this world? Do we want people who understand what's going on out there? Do we want people who know history and science and math? Are we looking to upgrade what our society is doing? Or are we just saying, okay, you're going to get, like, the basics over here in this schooling area with, you know, maybe a little bit more toxicity?
But if you want to pay for the premium package, you can upgrade to the private system.
There shouldn't be a premium option for education. It should all be at the highest quality that we can possibly go.
I agree.
I understand that there are issues and complications with why we have a private option and why public schools may not be that great. That said, I don't think that should be how it is. Yes.
Yeah.
We should change that. I'm not going to say how we should change it because I think that's a bigger complication.
It's
and
a very
it
complex situation.
But I think they should change it. That said, with homeschooling, this is I'm trying to, because my parents were told so many times that they did not know what they were doing. They were educators before they started homeschooling. They had curriculum. They were able to do so much. And so many people were surprised when myself and my siblings could read. They were surprised when we were capable of doing math problems, simple math problems, because they assumed that homeschool was so much worse than anything that any other school could do, that we would just be failures. And on one side, my parents kind of just fought through it and kept working and kept doing what they needed to do regardless. But imagining that toll on them, on top of trying to take care of the kids, on top of trying to educate them, on top of everything else, you have everyone telling you that you're going to fail. Not even knowing what you're doing, you're just going to fail in that way. That's huge. And so it's like, if you see someone who's trying homeschool, whether you like them or not, whether you think they're competent or not, my thing is, working with kids is difficult. You've worked with kids a ton. It's not easy. That's just one thing by itself. Trying to teach them is another thing. That's super difficult because you're like, if they're not successful, something wrong could happen. I could be the one who makes sure that this kid can't read for the rest of their life because I didn't teach them properly. And then beyond that, having people go, yeah, homeschool is just not a great option. You should go to a private school instead. It's just like, stop. Let's stop the stigma around homeschooling. Let's stop the craziness thinking that there is only one good option towards there. And if you want that good option, you have to pay for it. And let's be reasonable about those different types of education. Let people choose the ones that fit for them and not assume that we know better.
Yeah. Is your soapbox okay?
My soapbox
is it bending a little?
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It's a good point. And there's one more part about this that I want to talk about. And it's like this focus on the 10-year-old and being like, well, she is social and and that's the other thing that comes up around homeschooling all the time, right? Is this focus of like, oh, well, they're not going to be able to socialize. They're not going to be able to spend, like, okay, camera. People on the internet who are only listening to my voice.
I'll zoom in.
We get to socialize a lot as homeschoolers. Probably more than you got to in school. So here's the thing. If you have siblings, you're with your siblings all day, which is a wide age of people.
Absolutely.
That's 4 people that you're hanging out with. Yes, sometimes you don't always love hanging out with the people, and you get along with them sometimes, and then sometimes you don't.
Yes.
Depending on the neighborhood you're in, you might be hanging out with kids outside. That's another age group of people. I hung outside almost every day with 2 kids that lived in my neighborhood. Depending on where you're located at, there are a lot of opportunities for social, whether you're going to a sports club. It doesn't have to be through your school. No. You could go to a martial arts school. You could go to the Y and do different sports and things like that. There's a lot of different sports programs that are available. Another opportunity for your child to socialize at. There are co-ops. There are homeschool groups. There are a lot of things that are available. There are literally co-ops that act like schools, where all of the parents send their kids there, and then different parents take priority of teaching every day, and you get to do a lot of different things.
Could you explain a little bit more what a co-op is, just for those who don't understand?
So I don't have the official definition in front of me, but basically a co-op is a cooperation of all of these different families that have come together and decided, hey, we're going to homeschool together, and we're all going to work together as a group to teach children. And hey, I'm really good at math. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to teach the kids math today. And then there's another teacher that's I love reading and teaching kids how to read. I'm going to be in charge of reading.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. And so they'll all do it. But then on top of all of that, they have sports clubs, they have theater, they have all of these different things that a normal public school or even a private school has access to. And guess what? Your kids can socialize there.
Mm-hmm. And then beyond all of that, for us specifically, we haven't talked about it as much, but a lot of homeschoolers are part of large religious organizations. Yep. We went to church quite often.
Yes.
So we had all the people that there.
two to three times a week I was at church.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you have options to socialize, even if you're not religious. Mm-hmm. And I understand that you have every right to pursue whatever it is that you feel and you believe. But even then, there are so many options. And I hate it when I hear people be like, oh, well, you're tearing her away from her socials. Yeah. It's like, respectfully. And here's the thing that I think is very important that people realize. Wow, we're going to be really heated on this episode, aren't we? I'm just like, I'm hearing my voice and I'm like, oh, people are either going to like agree with us passionately or be like, oh, these two. But here's the reality, okay? You're at school.
Yes.
You're spending time at school, and if you're in elementary school, right, you're in the same group with the same people all day. Mm-hmm. Most of the time you're in class. If it's a good structured teacher, you're probably not talking as much. You're paying attention. You're asking questions. You're focusing on the thing ahead of you. Mm-hmm. You might have 30 minutes of lunch.
Yes.
And in that time, you're spending 5 of it grabbing your lunch, 5 of it eating, and then the other 20 minutes talking with your friends. 20 minutes with your friends of your same age group only. And then you might have 30 minutes to an hour of recess in elementary school. So that's give or take an hour and a half that you would be able to socialize in school. And obviously, like if you're in middle school or high school and you're going from lockers or one things to the other, you might have 5 to 10 minutes in between classes to get from one class to the other. And if you're socializing, most of the time you're going to be late. And that's not fun either. You'll also have lunch. You might have PE where you can like kind of talk. But all of the talking has to take place during other activities or doing it. Homeschooling just creates an environment where you're allowed to just relax at times.
Yeah.
And like, I know, and like obviously everyone's different and things are different, but there are so many opportunities that people just who are only in public school or only think about public school or private school as the option don't realize.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's frustrating.
It's frustrating, but you know, it's the way things are. And I hope that more people understand that it's not just that kind of black and white ideal of like, if you're in homeschool, you're going to be this antisocial, you have problems with your education, you don't know as much as other people. Yeah. There is a huge spectrum. Yes, that can happen. Mm-hmm. Yes, we've met people who are homeschooled before that have those complications in their life that maybe their parents weren't as good at making sure that they knew what they needed to know and they didn't have that. But for the most part,
that there are going to be teachers that are going to do that too, respectfully.
It can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
Do we have comments, though?
We have comments, and you're going to be a little upset by this.
Oh,
Internet labeled her not the picklefoot.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree with you, though.
Okay.
I agree that I think that she is a picklefoot in this situation.
Okay, what were the comments, though?
The comments that I pulled, first one says, not the picklefoot. Homeschooling is a lot of work. It requires planning and actually teaching the kids. Your sister sounds like she really has no idea what it involves. Your oldest niece will be miserable. Even a social butterfly can make life awful if they aren't getting their friendship needs met. Another person commented, depending on where they live, she'd have to submit a curriculum for each child. We homeschooled for 1 year and when stuck in a bad school district, and there was a lot of paperwork.
Yep.
Teaching multiple children of different ages for multiple hours a day isn't easy if you're well prepared. Plus, you have the extra work of providing socialization opportunities. She does not sound like she's put any work into it. Not the picklefoot.
That's fair. And I would even say with that, yes, like I said, I agree with OP in the idea that it doesn't seem like this mom is ready for what is coming.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think that's a ding against homeschooling or that it's a dig against her plans for it. I think it's more a dig against how much she's planned here.
And that's the thing, too, that I don't love is like the sister's response is nothing about, it's all about the mom.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, there's a little bit of that focus on the 10-year-old and like she's a social butterfly and wants to socialize and stuff like that. But it's all focused on the mom. And it seems like this sister just doesn't think the mom's competent.
Yeah.
And again, that's where I'm at. Like, you might be right.
Yeah.
You might be correct that she doesn't have the capabilities of doing it and things of that nature. But it's when you're overstepping and you're being like, you would be making a mistake doing this. It's like, okay, we don't know at what stage of the planning we're at. We don't know if like, hey, she's planning on pulling her kids out next week to start homeschooling. It could be like, hey, next semester, it's May right now.
Yeah, I'm just bouncing this idea off of you.
By next August, when school starts back, or July, or whenever your school district starts back, by that time, I'm thinking about planning on homeschooling my kids. So I have 3 months to prepare.
Yeah.
We don't know where that is, and that's information that's not provided to us. But there was no attempt to understand.
No.
It was just, you're making a mistake.
Yes.
And not talking about, like me and my wife have talked a lot about me going back to school and me getting my education degree. And there was a lot of questions about like, well, what does this look like? What does that look like? What does that look like for us in terms of like paying for everything and stuff like that? And I appreciate that we've done that. But if my wife had not talked to me about that and just been like, oh, you're going back to college? We'll have to spend money. No, that's a bad idea. I was like, oh, you're wanting to be a teacher? You've never taught in a school. No, you shouldn't do that. You should wait until you've substitute taught a year before you can do it, or wait until you even get your degree before you step into a classroom. If she had shut me down in that regard before like working with me through all the intricacies of it, that like you have to work with people. You don't just get to you shouldn't just throw out your opinions before trying to understand where they're coming from and trying to understand what they've done research-wise. Like, I had already done a lot of research into the degree I wanted to pursue before I ever did it. And if my wife had just been like, no, you're not doing that, or I think that's a bad idea, without trying to understand what I had looked into or what I was going for, it would really hurt our relationship. And on top of all that, but it's just, it would be disrespectful. Because it's like, you're not giving that person the opportunity to demonstrate what it is they've done.
No.
And another thing, one more thing. I know we've done this one a while. Just because you don't complete high school does not mean you're smart. You're not smart. Yeah. That's another thing that made me really upset reading this, is I know my brother, my older brother, struggled in school his entire life and barely passed high school. He was one of the smartest people I have ever met. He just could not do school effectively. He just was one of those people that struggled in school, struggled in that structure, regardless if it was in school, whether it was in person, homeschool, anything like that. There was a struggle. Incredibly smart person. You can be smart and not finish high school.
And it kind of goes back to that same ideal of, we so often assume that if people don't fit into the molds that we have set out for them, in many, many ways, that it is their problem. If these clothes don't fit you, if this schooling style doesn't fit you, if this social system doesn't fit you, if you don't like drinking out with friends and stuff like that, that is the fault of the person that doesn't fit in with the rest of the people. Yeah. Where instead it's like, no, sometimes people are not in that type of style. Sometimes people think differently and act differently. That's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing that's bad about it. It just means that sometimes they need different resources to be able to be successful. Maybe the mom needed to be homeschooled as well. Maybe that mom who's planning to homeschool her kids now is actually learning something about herself. Maybe the mom is going to educate herself with all the curriculum information that she's giving her kids.
Well, and that's another thing too that I was even thinking about, is it's like, I'm going back to college for a career just now. This woman, the sister who is going into it, is 30. Only a year older than I will be later this year. And so everyone is on their own timetable. Everyone moves at their own paces.
Yes.
Everyone is going to be doing things. And sometimes, crazy concept, we shouldn't be judging people for moving at different paces than others.
Yeah.
I felt a lot of guilt and shame a lot of my life because I'm 28 years old and I don't have a career, because that's what society has told me, that I should be at 28 years old.
Yeah.
With a career and with all these things. I should have a house. I should have blah, 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 blah. It's like, no. You're allowing other people to determine what your life looks like. And there's only really, depending on if you're religious or not, there's only one or two people or one or two entities that have that control in your life.
Yes.
And so it shouldn't be following anyone else's timetable. Anyways, that's it for that story. I know that one was big. This is probably gonna be a longer episode.
No, that's
just
okay.
Because it's
yeah. I mean, I think it's okay.
About.
I think it's reasonable. We give him more information.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
The hard part for me is I was reading through all the comments. Pretty much everyone that I read was bashing homeschooling.
Yeah.
Just it's a bad choice. It's a mistake. You shouldn't do it. I was like, I know so many people that went through homeschooling, blah, blah, blah. And they didn't socialize with anyone and blah, blah. I'm like,
he's making a fun face at the camera, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, squinty-eyed, the Thor
face.
meme. Really?
Of course.
Of course.
All right. You ready for my story now?
I am. Let's do it.
I'm going to give you a kind of lighter story, since that one was a little bit more heavy.
Yes,
We're going to do a very kind of just normalized ideal of it towards this. Okay,
let's go.
Am I the picklefoot for giving my kids a dress code for homeschool?
Interesting.
Right?
All right, let's go.
Okay. I have two daughters, aged 12 and 10, and I homeschool both of them. This school year, I decided to implement a dress code for school time. Towards the end of last school year, things got kind of tough. They'd frequently want to do school in their pajamas, and I didn't see a problem with it until they stopped doing their schoolwork, got distracted, went back to sleep in the middle of schoolwork. We ended up getting behind by the end of the school year and had to supplement by doing school over the weekends and into the summer, which the girls weren't pleased about.
Of course.
This year, I decided to implement a dress code for homeschool. They are no longer allowed to do school in their pajamas. To really drive home the point, I bought them some school skirts and tops for them to wear while doing school. I don't make them wear these every day, just on days when we have a lot of work to be done. I have found them to be a lot more focused and productive. My 10-year-old loves her school outfit. My 12-year-old, not so much. But as we're at home most of the day, she doesn't mind too much. I've discussed with some other homeschool moms, and I got a mixed response. Some think it's a good idea, and others think that I should have asked the girls before implementing it, and that I'm too strict. Am I the picklefoot?
It's a good story. That's a homeschool relatable story.
So is she the picklefoot?
I did make a face when you were bought the skirts and the clothing. I was like, oh, that's a choice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm on the fence a little bit. And the reason I'm on the fence is because as a homeschooler, you need systems in place to help you succeed. And so when I was homeschooled, we actually had a schedule. We had a color-coded schedule of from 8:30 to 9, we're doing devotionals and journaling, and then from 9 to 10 we were doing history, and from 10 to 11 we were doing math, and from 11 to 12 we were doing something, from 12 to 1 we were having lunch and a light recess, from 1 to 2 we were doing something else, and then usually we were done by 2.
Yeah, we had something similar, but yeah.
So there was structure, and structure is very important for just children in general. And that's what's I always laugh, because the meme is, or the joke is, you're a homeschooler because you do work in your pajamas.
Yes.
I didn't. And I don't think my mom specifically, and she'll probably correct me on this when she hears the episode, I don't think my mom specifically told us no, that's not true. Yeah, we had to be fully dressed. Pajamas were for bed. Clothes were for when you're doing things. Now, we didn't have to wear a school uniform, but we still had to get dressed and we still had to do things that we needed to do. We still had to take care of ourselves, make ourselves look clean and appropriate, brushing our teeth, taking a shower, all of the things that are expected if you were to go out into the world that we still had to do each and every morning, even if we were just staying home most of the day. And so it's like, the reality is the structure is important. I find it a little over the top to buy the school uniforms.
Okay.
But if she notices that it is helping them focus on days where there's a lot of schoolwork, you've got to do what you've got to do for your kids and what works for them, even if sometimes they don't like it. To be fair, I didn't like the structured schedule. I just wanted to do all my work when I wanted to do it. I didn't want to have the class times.
Yeah.
But you've got to do what you've got to do.
Yeah.
But
a little story from my side, just delving into my history as a homeschooler. I'm not sure if this happened because the same situation where OP was talking about her kids not really focusing as much and not doing as they needed to do. So I can't speak to that. I'll probably ask my parents later on and they'll tell me. At a certain point in our homeschooling journey, my parents decided that they wanted to give us a lot more structure. Okay. So they instituted this new thing. We woke up at a certain time.
Yep.
We were supposed to make our beds.
Yep.
We get dressed, we brush our teeth, we do all our morning stuff, we go over and we have breakfast. After breakfast, we would go over and we would have our PE class.
Oh, so you do PE right after breakfast?
Right after breakfast.
That's a bad choice, but okay.
I think maybe we did it before. They'll correct me, but we did it in the morning time before we actually started schoolwork.
It's at least colder in the morning than it would be later in the day. So I get that.
So we would go out wearing full clothes. We had to have our full clothes, no pajamas, no anything. We call them night clothes in there because we're Southern.
We wear them at night.
We wear night clothes. Anyways, we wore those. We went out. We did our class in the morning, and then afterwards we went over. For the day, we were not allowed back into our rooms.
Oh.
Mostly because, your toys were in there, your stuff that you wanted to play with was in there. So they're like, okay, you can't go back to sleep. You can't go relax in there. You're supposed to be focused on school. In our house, we were blessed to have enough space that we had this one room called the schoolroom.
Yes, we also had a schoolroom.
There you go. Yep. So you go in the schoolroom. My father and my mother, too, they bought us some desks. So we would go into the schoolroom. We would sit down at our desk, and we would go and do our homework. And then my mom would go through to each one of us and make sure that we were getting our stuff done, make sure that we had our homework that we were supposed to do for the other one. Yes. Even as homeschoolers, we had homework.
Well, all work is homework, though.
Yes, all work is homework, but also we had work that we had to do outside of the school time, which I was frustrated about. I understand why she did it, but still, it's like if I'm at home and I'm doing work, I should be able to finish all my. But that was me as a kid. I was very frustrated with that. Anyways, we were there for that certain amount of time doing our schoolwork. We had lunch. Then we went back over, finished up our schoolwork. After we finished school, that is when our doors would be open once again and we could go back to our rooms.
Interesting.
And so that was for, I think, a few months, maybe a year or so. That's how it was structured. And it helped us focus in on school versus just going, oh, I'm at home, I can do something else like that. I think the main reason why they did it was because they wanted us to, like they're kind of saying there, connect into our minds that this is school time. This is time for us to actually get our homework done, make sure that we're doing what we need to do versus just I'm at home, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I would sometimes, before this, just kind of go back to my room and maybe I have a cool toy that I want to play with, or maybe I just want to draw. I like to draw a lot. So it's I would just go there and hide out for a bit. So by kind of closing the door, making sure we can go in there, it forced us to do our homework. Yeah. So I don't think this mom is a picklefoot for the school clothes because one side, my parents did a lot more than just school clothes.
Absolutely.
But then also on the other side, I understand if they don't like the specific uniform.
Yeah, it's the forcing kids to wear something specific is gives me the ick. But I also went to a school for a year and a half where I had to wear a uniform because it was a charter school.
Yep.
And I think I had to wear a uniform when I went to the private school. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm assuming I had to wear a uniform at the private school. But yeah, so it's like, I just feel like, especially in homeschool, I just get a little bit of an ick when it's like I'm forcing my kids to wear certain clothes.
Yeah.
But also, you're a mom and you're the adult and you get to make that choice. And I don't think that is so far in the realm of like, this is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
That it would label her as a picklefoot. So I will also say not the picklefoot.
That's fair.
Again, don't force the other daughter to wear it unless, like you've said, I think, like, what I would actually recommend to the mom is let one day a week be uniform day. So, like, when I went to the charter school, and I, even from picking up from different schools and things like that, they would have one day a week where it was formal day.
Yeah.
And so you had to go in, you had to wear a tie, you had to wear a sweater vest, you had to wear like a nice white shirt, you had to wear like only khaki pants. That was all you could wear. The ladies had to wear a skirt unless it was during the winter time, and then they could wear pants. But like that was formal day, and you had to wear those clothes on formal day. So maybe that would be what I would recommend to the mom is like plan on the day that they have the most school to be also be formal day, and then the like one day out of the week you're going to wear these clothes, and then as long as you continue doing formal day you can wear whatever clothes and then ban pajamas.
That's
like
fair.
I think that's like what could be a better system, just because then you're not forcing the kid to have to wear them on random days, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that way they have, again, structure. You know, every Wednesday or every Thursday, this is formal day, this is the day I'm wearing my uniform.
I like that.
And thing like that.
That's good. Would you like some comments here?
I would. Let's hear the people tear up the mom for homeschooling.
So positive on this one.
Okay.
They said that she's not the picklefoot.
Okay. All right.
Which is fair. So they say, one of the top comments here, not the picklefoot. I think it's a good idea to have them get dressed before school, since it probably helps them focus and drives home the idea that this is school, not playtime.
Yep.
That said, actually buying them skirts and tops seems a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
Not a pickle-footy thing, but weird. I don't know about your girls, but for me, wearing a skirt at school sucks because you can only really sit one way, and personally, I'm not comfortable. I would say you should give your girls the option of wearing the skirts or pants. As long as they are dressed, focused, and working, I don't think you need to enforce a specific outfit. And then there's a second part underneath that for another person who responded. They say, I think of it as a change of clothing instead of scenery. When kids go to school and they are in the school setting, they know it's time to work. Since they are at home, it doesn't have that effect. Using the uniform is a way to Pavlov them into associating the uniform with working on schoolwork. Now, Pavlov, for people who don't understand or know that kind of idea, is basically you do something over and over and over again at the same time you do something else. So like you ring a bell every single time food is served. That way you start associating the bell with food. That's basically Pavlov's dogs that were there. At the end of it, they say, it actually reminds me of service dogs and police dogs. When they get their outfits on, they know it's time to go to work. It's simple yet effective. I will add in there, children are not pets. No. Children are not dogs. No. That said, they're just kind of connecting the Pavlov into the whole idea.
The reality of it is that children do need structure. Anyone who does research on children in general is that children need structure in that. And this is something that like I as an adult look back on it and I was like, ugh, I hated it as a kid. But as an adult, I'm like, no, I'm glad my mom did that, because if I was left to my own devices, nothing would have gotten done. Like, as I've already said, I struggled with ADHD, and like I was not officially diagnosed until I was post-college. Like it was 3 or 4 years ago that I was officially diagnosed and started taking medication for it. So if I had not had that structure when I was a child, which is probably what caused us to delay diagnosis for so long, is because the structure that I had was able to help. The only time where I started to fall behind or I got thing is when my mom would let me go into my room or into the office with a computer to do my work there. And instead of doing that, I'd play on the computer, or I'd read a book, or I'd do something else, because I didn't have someone right there following up with me and making sure that I was doing my thing. So structure is important. I like what the person said, though. I think, again, my ick is forcing someone to wear a specific style of clothes. I understand the purpose of a uniform, and I think it's good, but especially when you're in a home environment, it can be weird. But I think, like I was saying, instituting a formal day or, something like that, especially if it helps the kids focus, that's up to you.
I like that. I like that idea of a formal day. So like OP, if you're listening, I think formal day would be good. It might be a little bit more difficult to plan the busiest days for you on the specific formal day. You might have to do it multiple times or whatever. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. Beyond all of that, though, I think we're talking about structure in a larger scale. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Having one child that you are homeschooling is difficult by itself, right?
Absolutely.
Because you have to be able to understand what they're working through. You have to be able to help them understand these more complicated concepts, especially as they get older.
Yep.
I thought it was funny because as we started getting older and we started getting to more difficult concepts in math and science, it's like my parents, again, super smart. They were able to help me out basically almost all the way up to college in that way. But as it gets more complicated, it's like there's things that even they didn't fully understand when they were going through schools before that now they have to explain to me without being like a science major or anything like that. So it's complicated. Having multiple kids at multiple different education levels and understandings of these concepts, and then being able to switch back and forth between that's difficult beyond just making sure that they're doing their homework and that they're following those instructions, just taking care of kids. Yeah. And so I think a very important part of homeschool, even though it was one of the parts that I didn't like as much, just because I was a kid and I was a little more rebel, is structure. I think as a homeschool, if someone's leading homeschool, having structure for your kids and for your family is super important just to keep you sane. Yeah. Because there's a lot of stuff that's going on there. Even if you have a closed-in house where no one is coming in and nothing is happening
and
there.
We're not doing any extracurricular activities or anything boring. It's like...
It's still complicated.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, too, that I think is really important is it's like... And this extends through all of life, though, is it's like it's helpful to have a to-do list. It's helpful to create a budget. It's helpful to plan out your month. It's like these are all tools that help you succeed. Yeah. And there are people that are able to be successful and able to move forward without having those tools. But let me tell you, every single CEO, do you know what they have? They have a schedule and they have an admin assistant who is making sure that they're staying on top of that schedule. Yeah. And it's like, the reality of it is structure needs to exist regardless. But the beautiful thing is that, especially with homeschooling, is that yes, there's structure, but at any point in time, you can make the executive decision to break away from that structure.
That's true.
You can, at any point in time, just be like, you know what? We're good on math. We're good on science. We're going to go to the park today. And we're just going to spend the afternoon at the park. Or Florida, we're going to go to a theme park today and we're going to study physics by riding roller coasters. We're going to go to the zoo and look at animals. Like, we're going to go to the movies. That's something that we used to do every summer. I loved it. Tuesdays were movie days because they had those I think it was $5 movies in the summer that we would always go to. And I loved it. And it's it's things like that where it's like, yes, there's structure, but there's the freedom to be able to break away from that structure and know that you can get back onto it just as quickly.
It's awesome.
Where are we at time-wise, though?
We are basically at time, but we still have more stories to do. So I have an idea.
Yep, let's hear it.
This is an incredible topic. We want to continue on in it. So what if we break this into a two-parter? Like Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2.
So what I'm hearing is we should have just make a whole 3-hour episode. Just kidding.
So I think, we are going to end for this one, but we're going to give you a Part 2. It's going to be coming out next week. The rest of our stories, we're going to get into a little bit more homeschool topics.
Well, I definitely did not think the first story was going to delve into as much as it did, but we spent almost
30 minutes on that.
30 minutes on that one. Yeah. So it's there's a lot that we can delve into, and I think a lot that you and I have insight into and passionate about and things like that. So let's Let's do it. Let's split this episode 17 into part 1 and part 2.
Let's go. Okay.
right.
Well, Andrew,
Yeah.
well, this is wonderful. If the people want to talk to us more about homeschooling and possibly tell us their ideas of it, whether positive or negative, whether you agree or not, where should they do that at?
They can reach us on YouTube. If they want to follow along, they can hit that subscribe button and the little bell on the side to figure out whenever we post a new episode, like the part 2 that will be coming out. On top of all of that, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're all at Sheltered Sages. We got that handle early. And that you can reach out to us directly at shelteredsages@gmail.com.
Absolutely.
So.
And if you have stories about homeschooling that you want to tell us, positive or negative, again, please send your stories in. We'd love to hear about your experiences, why you liked homeschooling, why you don't like homeschooling, what happened in homeschooling, some funny stories, some interesting things like that. We'd love to hear about it. We'd love to possibly put it on this podcast as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So send us your stories and we will see you next week, I guess.
We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.